Remote desktop. One computer remotely accessing another computer. We use it all the time, it's required in IT. And you know what? I found a new solution that I love. Windows, Mac, Linux, doesn't matter, from any computer, including my, where's my phone? There it is, including my phone. It's free, open source, I can host it myself. That was a big deal. And it's solving a massive problem for me because up until now, I've been paying for RDP or remote access. And I'm tired of it. And you might be in this, oh my gosh, I just spilled coffee everywhere. And you might be in the same boat. I'm in a boat, I've got coffee everywhere. I'll be right back. So while I do use every operating system, because I love it, my primary workhorse is Windows. And we're kind of doing like a little history of RDP or remote access. Before I show you my favorite solution, I will show you. I just feel like I need to tell you a story first. Is that cool? Now I use every OS, Mac, Linux, Windows, I love them all. But I got a problem with Windows, specifically their RDP. Now here's the current state of remote desktop and my biggest problem with it. So right now, remote desktop. If you're on a Windows computer, which I often am, it's my daily driver, they actually have a pretty amazing remote desktop solution. It's native. It's called Remote Desktop or RDC Remote Desktop Connection. From this computer here, the one I'm using, I can remote into that laptop behind me, also running Windows. Let's try it out. We'll search for Remote Desktop Connection, or if you're old school, you'll search for MSTSC, put in your IP address and click on connect. And I'm in. Like it's amazing, except for one very big issue. And this is the reason I have to pay for remote desktop. This computer here, the one I'm remoting into, it has to be Windows Pro. Windows 11 Pro Edition. Can't just be home. Now sure, this computer, the one I'm using to remote into the other one, this can be any Windows edition. It can be home. But the ability to go into your settings. We'll pull it up real quick, Remote Desktop, Settings, and turn this feature on to allow people to connect to your computer. You have to have Pro for that. So my solution has been to upgrade all my stuff to Pro because I remote into all my things, including my video editors. They remote into their PCs all the time, so we have to be Pro everywhere. Pro costs $200. Kind of stupid for something that should be guaranteed built into your system. Also, Microsoft's native RDP software is fairly limited. A big feature it lacks is being able to log into your computer from anywhere. That's not possible. Those computers have to be on the same network. But often my editors are not on the same network as the computer they're trying to remote into. They're gonna be at their house. They're gonna be traveling. That's where TwinGate comes in, the sponsor of this video. We'll talk more about them later, but just know they are my remote access solution. They make it to where my video editors can connect to all my stuff here securely from anywhere. So Windows, while home can remote into Pro, Pro cannot remote into home or home to home. But this problem hasn't bothered me until now. Why? Well, now NetworkChuck Studios is going full Mac. Yes, every video editor is moving from a PC-based editing system to a Mac. And here's the problem. They often need to remote into their machines when they're working from home or when they're away. Now Mac can remote into Windows just fine. It has a Microsoft Remote Desktop app. It has to be Pro, can't do home, but it works great. The problem is that Windows cannot remote into Mac, not easily, and certainly not natively. And when I say native, I mean the app that the OS provides for you, which normally does give you the best performance. So if you can use that, go for it. Now we also use Linux around here, we're big fans. And sometimes our Linux machines do have a GUI and we want to remote into those. By the way, do you say GUI or GUI? Recently someone gave me flack for saying GUI. I stand by it. Now Linux is pretty cool. You can install what's called xRDP, and this allows you to use a remote desktop client, Mac or Windows, and connect to your Linux box using RDP. Very cool. Now to add one more annoying layer on top of this, you could use a protocol called VNC. It's very popular for remote desktop, and you can install it on all these operating systems. It sounds kind of perfect, right? Like that's our solution. VNC is kind of hard. It's a big pain to install, especially on Linux. And it may not give you all the bells and whistles you're looking for. Copy and paste can be troublesome. And with my editors logging in to edit videos, I'll need some like amazing native GPU performance. So this is the state of RDP. While there are solutions, and some actually work very well, it wasn't good enough for me. It's too cumbersome. I want one simple solution. Free, open source, and amazing. Is that too hard to ask? And that's where this journey begins. I had to find something amazing. And it had to work for Mac, Linux, and Windows. Everything. Okay, here is what I found. Because as I mentioned before, I did find the best solution, at least for me and my company. And I think it might be for you. We'll see. But here are some honorable mentions. And I actually do use these all the time. There's a sector of remote desktop called browser-based remote desktop, meaning you can access a computer remotely right from your stinking browser. You'll see two big players out there, both free and open source. You got Guacamole, And my personal favorite, Chasm VNC, which as the name suggests, they are using VNC. But it's their own flavor, and it's very, very awesome. They take all the pain away. And they do work for every OS, Mac, Linux, Windows. So you're probably wondering, Chuck, why not just use those? They're not a native client. They're fantastic for accessing a system where you're just gonna do some basic web browsing, maybe some terminal stuff. For example, I do have an employee in the Philippines who will log into our system with TwinGate, which is wicked fast, and she'll log into Chasm Workspaces. It looks like this. Let me stop describing it for you and show you. Here's Terry, my AI machine in my server room right now, and boom, I'm in. This is my favorite way to access stuff remotely. And while Chasm has made some leaps and bounds in doing GPU-related access, you can't beat native client support. There are better options that have a client installed for doing heavier things like video editing. This is where my research kind of took a weird turn. TeamViewer. Don't worry, that's not my solution, but it is a solution like this. If you've ever been hacked, you'll know what TeamViewer is. I'm just kidding, but hackers do use TeamViewer. It is one of the best ways to get remote access to any kind of system. Now, for example, I'm the unofficial IT guy at my church and I manage their Windows desktop there. I've got TeamViewer running on it, so I've got my TeamViewer application here, and without a VPN connection, I can simply connect to this machine. It's kind of amazing for what it is, and as you can see here, it's free for personal use. And it does have a ton of features, but honestly, I'm kind of annoyed by it. Because every time you connect to something, it tells you, hey, this is free. You disconnect to like, hey, this is a sponsored session. Make sure you play fair, buy a license. I don't like that. But the biggest thing I have a problem with is that I'm using TeamViewer's servers to access this computer. They're in control. If you trust TeamViewer, this is the solution for you. If you're unsure, keep watching. I wanted something better than this. Something that didn't make me feel guilty every time I used it, so I could use it for my business, and something that's truly free and open source. Something I can host myself, because I love hosting things myself. It's the best. So TeamViewer's out. But I love TeamViewer for what it does. It's so easy to get remote access. You just simply install a client and boom, you can get in. You don't need a VPN connection, although I do recommend it. And performance aside, it gives you a great way to do remote support for your family and friends. They're having a PC issue, Mac issue, Linux issue, bam, you can get access almost immediately, no matter where they are. So I wanted something like that with performance. My laundry list is pretty high, and I landed on two things. Two very popular options, one you probably heard of. It's called AnyDesk. I've heard a lot about this one recently, a big competitor to TeamViewer, and the one I chose, my favorite, is called RustDesk. RustDesk. Called that because they wrote it in Rust, a very popular programming language. Now, as far as features, they're pretty similar. Free, without the guilt, and the biggest thing for me, you can host your own server locally. Well, asterisk. You can host your own server locally for free with RustDesk. If you want to host your own server locally on AnyDesk, that's a paid option. That's pro. Also, RustDesk is open source. And while they do have a pro option, so you can pay them and get official support, that's a whole thing, they do maintain an open source version of their software. And similar to TeamViewer and AnyDesk, they do have GPU acceleration, clients for everything, including your phone. But the biggest things for me, open source and the ability to host it locally yourself. Let's do that right now. Now, typically, when you're installing RustDesk, that means you're gonna be installing a RustDesk server, either on-prem in your home lab or in the cloud. But you don't actually need that. In many cases, you don't need a server at all. If you have the RustDesk client, which the more I say RustDesk, the harder it is to say. I don't know why. If you have the client installed on your computers, and they're on the same network, or they're using TwinGate for remote access, they can access each other via IP address. So check this out. I'll install RustDesk on my laptop over here that I'm already remoted into. I'm gonna remotely install some remote software. I'll have all these links below, but it's pretty easy to find. Click on download, find our client, which will be Windows. I'll do MSI for 64-bit, install it. And then there's one setting we have to change to allow local access. We'll click on these dots right here next to our ID, and then click on, I believe, network. We'll unlock those settings, which will give you a little UAC prompt. No, not network, it's gonna be security. We'll unlock those too. And we'll scroll down to the bottom where we'll see enable direct IP access. Perfect. We'll say port 2.1.1.8, apply. That's the default. And then up here, we'll set a permanent password. Okay, that's all we have to do. Now I'm gonna disconnect my native RDP application, and then I'll use RustDesk, this client here on my computer, which I already have installed, obviously, and I've been using it a lot. I'm gonna connect directly to the IP. Ready, set, go. Oh, wait, asking for my password, and I'm in. It's looking for my login, my face. I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I don't have to do that. It'll give me an option to log in with my pen. There we go. And I'm in. Now it's kind of bouncy and weird. Let me change the resolution to scaled. And right now at this moment, we're simply IP to IP, local network, nothing going to the cloud. Notice up the top here, it'll tell me, hey, this connection's direct and unencrypted, which is fine on your local network. And I can do the same thing with my Mac. Let's connect, put in the password, and I'm in. Browsing on my Mac. Also notice too, when I try and change the settings for Rust Desk on the remote machine, these settings are grayed out by default, but that is a setting we can change by going to security and enabling remote modification. Now this may be where your remote access journey ends. This may be good enough for you. It's actually good enough for most of my use cases. Many things I want to access are right here on my LAN, and when I'm away, when I'm at my house, when I'm traveling, when I want to access my stuff from my phone, I still want the local access. I don't want to go through any other server. And I do that with the sponsor of this video, Twingate. Now here comes the ad portion of this video. Yes, videos are sponsored. It happens sometimes. For me, all the time. But seriously, Twingate is a longtime sponsor of my channel. I trust them, I use them every day. They are a zero trust network access solution, and they enable me to access my stuff from anywhere in the most secure way possible. And I prefer to use Twingate with Rust Desk because I get fine control over who has access to what. For example, we just did this because Mike, our editor, was one of the first to receive a Mac. And he's like, hey, we just had a big snowstorm. How do I work from home today? Because I can't remote into my Mac. Now, what I love about Twingate is that it's completely free for home labbers and also for businesses if you don't have over like, I think it's 5 users, 10 users? What does it say? I have to actually look it up. Oh yeah, 5 users. And all you have to do to enable remote access is install a Twingate connector somewhere in your network. It can be a Raspberry Pi. In fact, in my last video, I needed access to my church, remote access to control their network. All I did was install Twingate on a Raspberry Pi and drop that off at the church. Now from anywhere, I can access that network. Notice here in my resources, I've got Mike's Mac. And check this out, I can see who's been accessing Mike's Mac, Isaac and Mike. Why is Isaac using Mike's Mac? I'm getting confused here, Mike's Mac. And that's controlled via a security group I have for video editors. And you have to be in that video editor group to be able to access Mike's Mac, Mike's Mac. So no matter what solution you use to remotely access your desktops, Twingate is there to give you that local connectivity. If you want to go native, go native. Remote desktop from Microsoft, remote desktop from Mac, those typically, and actually I think they do, have better performance than third party. You can have that and use Twingate. So if you want to access your home lab from anywhere, watching Plex, logging into your NAS, or you want to be able to access your family and friends network remotely so you can help them with their IT stuff, check out Twingate, link below. Long-term sponsor, I trust them, I love them. End of the ad segment. Back to talking about Rust Desk. Now just because I'm mainly using the local access with Twingate doesn't mean I'm not going to install a Rust Desk server somewhere. What I want to do is install a Rust Desk server, which by the way is super easy to install. We're going to install that with Docker, which you know I love Docker. We're going to install that in the cloud. Hey, check from the future here. I forgot to mention that the reason we want to install a Rust Desk server in the cloud is that it's reachable by everyone in the cloud. So when you do want to have those remote access situations for your family or friends, and they're not already on your VPN with Twingate, that's a quick and easy way to do that. It's also great to have that as a backup. For example, I may take my laptop with me somewhere and I leave it up in my hotel room, powered on, and I want to remotely access it from my phone while I'm walking around. I don't have Twingate access to my hotel room, but my Rust Desk server will get me back to my laptop. I mean, who doesn't love redundancy? Now you 100% can install this locally in your network. And the installation will be the same steps. You might have to do some port forwarding to make things work, but I think you have the best experience by having it in the cloud. I'll show you why. First, we'll log into a cloud. The cloud is just someone else's data center, someone else's computer. For me, I'm gonna use Linode. I use multiple clouds. This just happens to be the one I'm using right now. It doesn't matter what cloud you use. And I'll set up a new server, something close to me, and something small. I'll run it on Ubuntu 2404, and I'll choose their smallest instance, a $5 1 GB of RAM. A little machine, $5 a month. I'll label it, give it a password, and create. It's amazing how easy it is to create a virtual machine, a computer in the cloud, just like that. Now you might be wondering, Chuck, we just did the Rust Desk client situation. What's the server doing? Why do we need that? Well, the server is operating as what's called a relay server / rendezvous server. This will be useful in a situation where you may not have local network connectivity for a computer you're trying to access. So for example, your Uncle Rico calls you up and says, hey, my computer no worky, need help. You say, okay, fine, go to rustdesk.com, install this little application, and tell me the code you have, or the ID. And the client, it'll look something like this. ID, and then a 9-digit number. Very similar to TeamViewer if you've ever used that. This ID will help you discover the other computer and connect to it. And all that magic happens with the Rust Desk server. We'll put in Uncle Rico's ID, and our Rust Desk client will reach out to our server and say, hey, I got this ID, I'm trying to connect to a computer, can you help me out? Can you facilitate this? And the server will do just that. It'll figure out, hey, can we bust through Uncle Rico's network and firewall, do some NAT hole punching, and facilitate a direct connection between us? Or is that not possible? Is Uncle Rico's network just terrible and the server itself will be the middleman, facilitating that connection? Either way, the Rust desk server is gonna make sure it happens. And also, I way oversimplified how that works. If you wanna learn more, do a nice nerdy deep dive. That's a weird phrase. I'm gonna trademark that. They have a very fun diagram that shows all those handshakes and that discovery. And notice too, when I say Rust desk server, I'm really meaning Rust desk servers. There's a signaling server and a relay server. But when we install it via Docker, it's just gonna be like that. So actually, let's do it right now. Looking at my Linode, and I'll grab the IP address. And using my terminal here in Windows, I'll SSH root at the IP address. Of course, this will vary based on what cloud you're using, or if you're going local, just get logged into your local server. Now, a couple of things we're gonna do. First, we'll do a sudo apt update to make sure all our repos are updated. We'll then install Docker. That's what we're gonna use to run our Rust desk servers. If you don't know what Docker is, I envy you. You get to learn it fresh, like watching a new movie or reading a Harry Potter book. Sorry, yeah, I'm a nerd. Go check out my video here talking about Docker. It'll change your life after you install this, because you don't have to know what it is to be able to play with it. In fact, playing with it will help you learn it. I have this link below to install Docker. It'll be 2 quick copy and paste things. First, we'll set up Docker's apt repository. That sounds really scary, I know. All we have to do is copy this code and paste it over here. Hit enter. It's gonna do its thing for just a moment, so we'll get a little coffee break. Done. And all that's doing is setting out Docker's repos. Because when we install Docker, when we use the command install Docker, we're gonna look at Docker servers and say, we want the fresh, most up-to-date version of what you have. And then we'll use this command that we'll copy and paste. Sudo apt get install Docker. It's gonna install all the Docker components just the way Docker wants you to install them. Hit enter and let it run. This also should not take very long, but we'll take a little coffee break. Now at this point, we do have Docker installed and we can now set up our Rust desk servers. This is the easiest part. Docker makes everything easy. I will have a link below. It's gonna take you to this page here. We're on the self-host tab. They have a section for Docker installation, and we're gonna use a Docker tool called Docker Compose. Again, this is very, very easy. See this code right here? We're gonna copy it with this little button, copy that. And over here in our terminal, we're gonna do a few things. First, we'll make a new directory, mkdir. We'll call it Rust desk Docker. We'll use cd to jump into that directory, cd rust desk Docker. And then we'll create a new file. We'll use nano, and we'll call this docker-compose.yml. And then right here, we're gonna paste all that delicious YAML that we just copied from Rust desk documentation. It's describing creating 2 containers, HBBS and HBBR, our 2 Rust desk servers. All we have to do here is hit Control-X, Y, enter to save. And then with one command, we're gonna bring up our servers and have Rust desk running. The command will be docker space compose space up-d. Ready, set, go. Isn't this magic? Oh, that's it, it's done. Isn't that crazy? You'll see our 2 servers running there. And that's pretty much all we have to worry about. Actually, there is one more thing. If you type in ls in the directory you're in right now, you'll see a folder called data. This was created by our Docker Compose file when we ran Docker Compose. We'll do cd data to jump in there, type in ls once more, and we're gonna grab one piece of information here, the contents of this ID ed25519.pub file. This is your public key, and we'll need that. So we'll do cat id blah 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 .pub. .pub, and there's my public key. It's okay that you can see mine, it's public. We're gonna need this key, everything right before root right here. Let me zoom out so it looks cleaner. We'll also need the IP address, which I forgot my IP address already too. Okay, cool. My IP address is this guy right here. Go ahead and grab yours. And now we'll take a field trip to our Rust desk clients. Now real quick, notice this. When you first install your Rust desk client on a new computer, you'll notice that down here on the server connection, it says ready, but for a faster connection, please set up your own server, which we just did. However, what this means is that Rust desk by default will use public Rust desk servers, meaning Rust desk servers that are run by Rust desk. I've been saying Rust desk too much. Can we simplify that? Can we abbreviate it? RD. We'll call it RD. Although we're at the end of the video, what's the point now? Now, for many privacy-minded people, this is an issue, which is why it's very important to set up your own server. So let's change that right now. To change your server, we'll click on those little dots again, right here, and we'll click on the network tab. We'll unlock our network settings, and then we'll click on the ID relay server. Here, we're gonna paste in the IP address of our Rust desk server. I'll also paste in the same IP address for the relay server. I don't think we have to do that, but I feel like it's the same, it'll be the same one. And then down here for key, that'll be the public key that we just looked at. So getting back to our terminal, I'll cat that file one more time. There's the .pub file, and I'll grab everything, including the equal sign, but right before my username. So just like this, and I'll paste that here and click OK. Successful, we're good to go. Now if we look at our homepage again, we can now see ready without that scary message that we're using someone else's server. We're using our server. Now we'll need to set up that server on every client. So for my client here on my local desktop, I'll also go into my settings, network, ID relay server, and paste the same information. Okay, and successful. And what I'll do real quick is take note of the ID and the one-time password. One-time password's handy because it's ephemeral by nature, and it's great for quick tech support situations. So I'm gonna disconnect this session, and instead of using my IP address, I'm gonna use the ID of my remote computer back here. So pretending we're helping Uncle Rico here, our Rust Desk client will use its configured server, the server that we just set up, to go ask it about this ID. Like, hey, do you know about this ID? Does someone connected to you have this? Can you connect me to them? Let's do it now. Connect. That was quick. We'll put in that one-time password that we just snagged. Click OK. We'll retry with our permanent password. And we're in. Notice this time, everything looks pretty much the same except for our connection status up here. It's a direct and encrypted connection. Meaning our Rust Desk server was able to talk to the other end, the client, and go, oh, we can actually make a direct connection. Let's set that up. And boom, we're connected. And we're not going through the relay for our connection. So it's faster, it's better performance. Now asterisk here, that doesn't mean I have a local direct connection. When you use that ID, it's gonna end up talking to your relay server. If you want a true local direct connection, you'll want to enable that LAN access and connect via IP address. Now let me show you what it looks like when you're connecting via a relay. I'll connect to my church PC, and notice up here at the top, we got a different icon, relayed and encrypted connection. Meaning the server's like, hey, I can't connect you guys directly, but we can play a little bit of telephone. I can be the in-between. But I don't have to do that. I don't want to go through a relay. I'll go to my twin gate setup for the church, create a new resource for the Reach computer. Reach is the name of my church, by the way. Give myself access. And actually, I'll limit it to one port because I know it's port 21118. Wait, too many ones. There we go. Paste in the IP address. Connect, and now I have a direct connection. Now a few flyby features of Rust Desk. I got all my recent connections and their statuses right here. Oh, I didn't show you a Linux host. Let me just quickly connect to my Linux guy here. Boom, Linux. Oh, and by the way, they also just released support for a headless Linux experience. So for most Linux servers we set up, there's no head, meaning we didn't install a GUI. It has no display attached to it, but they do have a quick little way to set that up. I tested it, it's not great. So I wouldn't get too excited, but I'm hoping they add more to it. Now you can add your favorite stuff here. I've got my favorites. They even have auto discovery. It'll discover other hosts on your network that are also running Rust Desk. Of course, that is gonna have to be in the same subnet to auto discover. Other features, like an address book and people, require a login. This is more for the pro version of Rust Desk, if you wanna pay some money. That's neat. You can see here, you really don't need it. There's so much you can do here. And if you go into settings, I mean, you can see there's just a ton of stuff to do. From general, you can change pretty much everything you want, including using the hardware codec. Of course, you want to use that. Wow, I didn't even show performance. Let me show you that real quick. Let's see, what should I connect to? Connect to my Mac. Or did it go to sleep? I think it went to sleep. Let's go play a video. Yes, I have a million tabs open. Ooh, a new ChatGPT feature.
All right, so OpenAI just dropped tasks as part of ChatGPT. That means you can give ChatGPT things to remember there. And so what are they trying to do with it? But now they're adding more fun.
Watch as I scroll. I mean, this is fantastic performance. All right, that's the video. Remote desktop solutions, I think this is the best one. There are others, I know, and they have their different use cases, but if you're looking for near native performance, near native client performance, Rust Desk is the way to go, I feel. I love the project. I really hope the devs continue to support it, pour their love into it, and make it more awesome. Oh, and I didn't even show you the phone. I mean, that's pretty sick. Let's see, I'll disconnect it from my Mac here, and boom, I'm in.
And there is no word when the feature is
That's
going to
awesome.
be released to free users.
All right, that's the video. Do you have a better way of doing what I'm doing here? I would love to know. Comment below. Also comment below if you just want to say hi. Hi.